In Prague, premium beer is cheaper than bottled water. And be wary, because the beautiful women you meet on the street could be stars in the adult entertainment industry that this country dominates. Welcome to the Czech Republic, one of the most atheistic countries on the planet, home to some of Europe's most ancient castles, exotic cuisine, and unique Czech culture. Watch until the end of the video because what you're about to discover might completely change your perception of this country. The Czech Republic is a small country nestled between Germany and Austria. It covers an area of approximately 30,000 square miles and has a population of 11 million. Its capital, Prague, is a rare historical gem. Unlike London or Paris, Prague's architecture is almost perfectly preserved, having not been destroyed during World War II. Here, you can see the oldest functioning astronomical clock on the planet. But architecture isn't the most captivating aspect. No one on the planet drinks more beer than the Czechs. On average, a person consumes 126 liters of beer per year. In central Prague, a glass of draft beer costs only $1.50, while in the US it would cost between $6 and $8. Prices in the Czech Republic are actually cheaper than a bottle of water bought hastily at a gas station. People consider beer as essential as their daily morning coffee. When drinking beer, you must adhere to an unwritten rule. You must look directly into the other person's eyes when clinking glasses to avoid being considered rude. Czech beer heritage is a monumental achievement. The world's first Golden Tower beer was created here in 1842. It served as the original model for 2/3 of the world's beer today. Even the famous American brand Budweiser borrows its name from a Czech town. This town brewed beer even before the United States was founded. The enthusiasm was so great that the Czechs dug an entire network of underground tunnels. This system was used to pump beer directly from the brewery to the giant sports arenas. And after enjoying those legendary beers, you can't miss Prague Castle. This is one of the capital's most important symbols. This magnificent complex has been officially recognized by the Guinness Book of Records as the largest ancient castle in the world. So, will you come to the Czech Republic for its magnificent architectural heritage, or simply for the allure of those legendary beers that are cheaper than bottled water? Let me know in the comments. And get ready, because the next piece of the puzzle is a rarely told truth, and it's more fascinating than the Czech beer and castle you just heard about. Ask anyone who's ever been to the Czech Republic. The second thing they remember after beer is the women. They possess a beauty that blends Celtic, Germanic, and Slavic blood, with bright eyes and a relaxed, unpretentious style. You'll rarely see them in high heels. Women here prefer high-quality sneakers or flat boots because Prague's streets are paved with rough cobblestones. Their charm comes from their natural elegance, and they wear far less makeup than American women. But appearance isn't the core value. The real attraction is their quiet confidence and educational background. The Czech Republic is one of the most progressive societies in Europe. The percentage of women with university degrees far exceeds that of men. They are very independent and straightforward. They never rush to impress strangers. Don't expect warm hugs on the first meeting. They are polite, but always maintain a safe distance. It's not coldness. This culture values sincerity more than empty pleasantries. When dating, you must understand the language barrier. Czech clearly distinguishes between formal vi and informal tai. Be patient and use vi. When she allows you to switch to tai, you've scored major points for your thoughtfulness. Another unspoken rule lies in the bill. Czech women are financially independent and earn a lot of money. But on the first date, the man is always implicitly expected to pay. She will proactively offer to split the cost on subsequent dates. If you're lucky enough to be on subsequent dates, remember that when raising a glass of wine or beer, you must look her straight in the eye. If you avoid eye contact, you'll immediately be seen as untrustworthy. This country has no place for fake friendliness. Once the defensive wall is lowered, it will be a truly genuine connection. If you want to know more about how to date Czech women, comment number 2 below and we'll share. If you're used to smiling waiters, things are completely different in the Czech Republic. Waiters have extremely serious expressions. They work at a breakneck pace and rarely smile. Czechs value sincerity above all else. They consider smiling at strangers to be incredibly insincere. The culture of small talk at the cashier's counter is completely absent. People respect each other's personal space and time more than empty pleasantries. Besides this clear-cut communication, visitors are often shocked by the level of pragmatic freedom here. You'll never see no entry signs in the forests. You have the freedom to roam and gather everywhere. The government allows driving speeds of up to 150 kilometers per hour on highways. Most importantly, there's the right to own weapons. Czech citizens are allowed to carry concealed firearms in public for self-defense. This is an extremely rare constitutional right in Europe. From 2026, adults will be allowed to grow small amounts of cannabis at home. Doctors will also be permitted to prescribe cannabis. But this is certainly not Amsterdam. Openly operating cannabis shops do not exist, and mass commercialization is strictly prohibited. This country also harbors a huge underground industry. The Czech Republic is a major center of the adult entertainment industry. The Czech population accounts for less than 1% of the world's population, yet they hold 13% of the global market share in this industry. In Prague, you might unexpectedly encounter a famous star from this industry. Women participate entirely voluntarily, seeing it as a quick way to make money without any coercion. They operate as freelancers, required to declare their income and pay taxes. They are also required to pass extremely rigorous medical examinations. Despite the enormous profits, locals rarely discuss this topic, and millions of tourists have come and gone without knowing the secret right beneath their feet. Which fact surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. The Czech Republic consistently ranks among the top 3 most atheistic countries on the planet. Over 70% of the population claims not to belong to any religion. Churches here are almost always empty on Sunday mornings. But the strangest thing begins with that very emptiness. This is a country that completely rejects the authority of the church. Yet they possess and preserve some of the most magnificent Gothic and Baroque churches in Europe. They absolutely refuse to destroy the past. Czechs view these churches through the lens of engineering and heritage. For them, a church is not a place to kneel. It is a masterpiece of stone construction and physics. Many of these large churches have now been repurposed, becoming concert halls with superb acoustics or art museums. They revere human ingenuity, not religious dogma. Furthermore, Western media believe that religion is the only thing preventing the collapse of social morality. The Czechs prove the complete opposite. They don't need religious sermons to maintain discipline. Czech society operates on stoicism and practicality. They maintain a clear distinction between men and women. The family structure is extremely close-knit. Men still play the traditional protective role. Women receive up to 3 years of maternity leave supported by the state. They uphold these core values far more firmly than many Western countries. All of this stems from an incredibly harsh historical logic. For 400 years, the Czechs were assimilated by the Habsburg Empire using Catholicism. Then they endured 40 years under a regime that imposed strict ideology. As a result, they developed a perfect survival filter. The Czechs reject any organization that attempts to control their minds, but they absolutely retain beauty and the most practical values. They are living proof of a fascinating truth. You can be completely free in your thinking, yet still be an excellent defender of tradition. If you were surprised to hear this, please share your perspective in the comments below. In contrast to their liberal lifestyles, when it comes to food, the Czechs are extremely serious and conservative. Their cuisine is designed for survival during the harsh winters. The focus of every meal is grilled meats, rich sauces, and the perfect pairing with beer. Their national dish is svíčková na smetana, slow-cooked tender beef drizzled with a creamy root vegetable sauce and served with steamed bread, knedlíky. This recipe has existed since 1826. The most common dish on the table every day is vepso knedlo zelo, consisting of perfectly roasted pork and sauerkraut. If you prefer stews, hovězí goulash is a must-try. Its sauce is incredibly rich and cooked directly with Czech beer. During holidays, pečená kačna, slow-roasted duck, reigns supreme. The Czechs don't have elaborate appetizers. They always start with soup. Most notably, there's česnečka, a garlic soup considered by locals to be an extremely effective hangover cure and cold remedy. There's also kulajda, a creamy mushroom soup. The Czechs have a peculiar obsession with self-sufficiency. Every autumn, thousands head into the deep forests just to hunt for wild mushrooms. At pubs, the perfect beer accompaniments are utopinek, sausages marinated in vinegar, or smažený syr, deep-fried cheese. On the streets, you'll easily find bramboraki, potato pancakes, and chlebičky, open-mouth sandwiches, as quick snacks. However, there's a historical hoax you should avoid. The trdelník, chimney-shaped pastry, sold all over Prague actually originated in Hungary. It's just a gimmick of labeling it as royal heritage to attract tourists since the 1990s. If you want to enjoy authentic Czech sweets, look for kolache bread with fruit jam, or order the sweet ovocné knedlíky dumplings. A practical menu overflowing with meat and ice-cold beer. Which dish on this list would you most like to try? Leave a comment below. Most tourists make a fundamental mistake. They think Prague is everything. But in reality, the Czech Republic only reveals its truly gritty and magnificent nature when you get behind the wheel and venture beyond the capital's boundaries. The first stop is sure to pique your curiosity. Kutná Hora in central Bohemia. It was once a massive 14th century silver mining empire, funding the colossal Gothic St. Barbara's Church. But the most shocking thing lies underground. The Sedlec ossuary. This eerie and haunting crypt is entirely decorated with over 40,000 real human skeletons, interwoven into giant chandeliers and garlands. If you had to spend a night in this crypt decorated with real bones, do you think you could sleep soundly? Leave a comment if you're brave enough. Driving south towards Bohemia, you'll find Český Krumlov, a medieval fortress nestled along the bends of the Vltava River. Almost immune to the ravages of European wars, it retains the imposing Český Krumlov castle and its 18th century Baroque theatre with its mechanically powered chimneys. If you're a nature lover, head north to the German border. Bohemian Switzerland National Park is home to monolithic sandstone towers, Europe's greatest arch, the Pravčica Brana, and boat trips through the deep Edmund Gorge. For a challenging trek, head to the country's highest mountain range, Krkonoše. Here, you can conquer the 5,260-foot Sněžka Peak, trace the source of the Elbe River, and stand atop the 485-foot Pančava waterfall. Finally, head down to Moravia. The Moravian karst region hides an underground world with over 1,100 natural limestone caves. You can ride an electric boat down the underground river at Punkva Cave, gazing up at the 452-foot deep Makocha Abyss. Especially if you're fascinated by military ruins, don't miss exploring the secret military bunker built inside the Vypustek Cave. If Prague is a beautiful postcard, then these regions are the true heartbeat of the Czech Republic. You think you understand Europe completely, but the Czech Republic will give you a real culture shock. The first thing you'll notice is the difference when you step onto public transport. We usually speak loudly, but in the Czech Republic, absolute silence prevails. You'll receive disapproving stares if you make any noise. Furthermore, giving up your seat to the elderly is a mandatory social rule. You'll certainly be scolded if you deliberately ignore it. This strictness in public places also leads to a rule that tourists dread the most. Entering any sauna here requires you to be completely naked. Most saunas are shared by both men and women. You absolutely must not wear swimwear inside. Locals believe that the high temperature will cause chemicals from clothing to evaporate and become toxic. This is purely a practical hygiene principle and not at all sensitive. To relieve the pressures of urban regulations, the Czechs have a very peculiar habit. Every Friday afternoon, large cities like Prague witness a massive exodus. Statistics show that about a third of the Czech population owns wooden houses near the forest. People collectively start their engines and leave the noisy city. They spend the entire weekend digging the soil, repairing their houses, picking mushrooms, and grilling sausages in nature. Escaping to the forest is not their only defense mechanism. Psychologically, the Czechs have developed an extremely dark sense of humor. Their national history is full of turmoil due to repeated domination by major empires. Therefore, they joke about everything, including politics and death, with a detached attitude. Outsiders might consider these jokes insensitive, but in reality, it is a weapon that helps them survive and overcome adversity. First is the historic spa town of Karlovy Vary. It's famous for its magnificent Baroque architecture and natural volcanic hot springs. These springs are effective in treating joint and digestive ailments. A special feature is the Karlovy Vary Golf Resort, established in 1904, one of the oldest golf courses in Central Europe. You'll have an ideal experience combining aristocratic sports with physical wellness. The next experience will stimulate your passion for speed and history. You can rent a classic sports car like an older generation Porsche 911 or a vintage convertible. Then you'll drive along the peaceful countryside roads of Bohemia. This route directly connects fortified medieval fortresses like Karlstein and Křivoklát. This activity offers a sense of original freedom and spontaneity while still retaining the rich cultural heritage of ancient Europe. Finally, there's the True Beer Spa Sanctuary in the town of Chodova Plana. This complex is located right in the ancient Chodova Brewery, established in the 12th century. They use natural hot spring water mixed with dark beer, yeast, and specially formulated herbs. This mixture is pumped directly into antique stone and copper tubs. This therapy helps detoxify the skin and relieve muscle and joint pain very quickly. You can also enjoy fresh beer poured directly from the tap next to the tub while you soak. The Czech Republic is a great destination, but you must be wary of hidden cost traps. The country uses the koruna, not the euro. Never exchange money at the airport or at ATMs disguised for tourists in the city center. You could lose a fifth of your money due to exorbitant exchange rates. The advice is to only withdraw money from ATMs of major banks. Getting around on the streets also carries similar risks. Absolutely do not hail a taxi on the street to avoid being overcharged. Use transparent ride-hailing apps like Uber or Bolt. A ride from the airport to the center of Prague costs only about $18. Instead, you can use their excellent public transport system. Trains run every 2 to 3 minutes, and a short-term ticket costs only 39 koruna. However, remember one crucial rule. Trams always have the right of way, even when you are walking on pedestrian crossings. The cost of traveling here depends heavily on your choices. If you go in winter, hotel prices range from $55 to $75 per night. This price jumps to over $130 in the summer. Regarding food, avoid the tourist traps in the Old Town Square. In the local areas, a glass of draft beer costs only $3 and a main course is around $15. Overall, a comfortable day of sightseeing will cost you around $150. This is a reasonable amount for American tourists. However, the financial pressure is heavy on the shoulders of locals. Their average salary in 2025 is 52,000 koruna. Meanwhile, the rent for a one-bedroom apartment alone costs 21,000 koruna. Behind the cheap beers, Prague is actually one of the most expensive cities in Central Europe for its own citizens. If your salary is only enough to cover rent like a local in Prague, would you be willing to live there for its beauty? Share your thoughts. First, there's the historic Znojmo Wine Festival, held in mid-September in South Moravia. This event attracts over 80,000 visitors annually. The biggest highlight is Burčak, a young wine fermented just a few days prior. It has a sweet, fruity taste, but its alcohol content increases hourly. Locals parade in medieval costumes and drink this beverage continuously for 3 days during the festival. If you're looking for the absolute authenticity of beer, head to Pilsen in early October. The Pilsner Fest is held at the Pilsner Urquell Brewery to celebrate the first brew of golden beer ever made in 1842. Here, you'll descend into the deep underground cellars and sample the legendary unfiltered and unpasteurized beer poured directly from ancient oak barrels. This is the original flavor you can't find in any supermarket in the world. Next is the Prague Spring International Music Festival from mid-May to early June. This is the most prestigious classical music event in the Czech Republic. The festival brings together hundreds of world-class artists. However, it doesn't cause overcrowding or chaos in Prague. The organizers strictly control the number of attendees with a ticketing system. For major performances, you must book tickets 2 to 3 months in advance. Finally, there's the Czech Beer Festival, also held in Prague in mid-May. This event brings together more than 70 domestic breweries with over 120 different types of beer. The daily entrance fee is extremely cheap, ranging from only $3 to $6. The unique feature is that you have to buy a separate top-up card inside to redeem your beer. You don't need to buy entrance tickets early, but you should book your hotel room several months in advance because this is peak tourist season. For much of the 20th century, world maps showed a federation called Czechoslovakia. It was home to over 10 million Czechs and approximately 5 million Slovaks. However, on January 1st, 1993, the nation officially vanished overnight. All national assets, including gold reserves and military aircraft, were divided equally according to a precisely mathematical ratio of 2 to 1. This event went down in history as the Velvet Divorce. It occurred entirely peacefully through negotiations. Not a single shot was fired, and no border crises arose. To illustrate the contrast, let's look at the Balkan region at the same time. The former Yugoslavia also underwent separation, but chose a violent path. That decision sparked devastating wars that lasted nearly a decade and claimed the lives of over 130,000 people. Two multi-ethnic nations at the same time produced two completely contrasting outcomes. The Czechs demonstrated exceptional pragmatism and crisis management. They consistently chose peaceful and logical solutions over emotionally charged conflicts. This shift is even clearly reflected in their national emblem. Their original flag had only 2 stripes, white and red. It looked almost a complete copy of the Polish flag. Therefore, the designers added a dark blue triangle along the left side. This element symbolizes the Moravia region and the independent Slavic identity of the Czech people. If you think a safe country must have streets densely packed with armed police, look at the Czech Republic to see the complete opposite logic. This country has consistently ranked among the top 10 most peaceful countries on the planet for over a decade. The Global Peace Index measures this based on 23 extremely rigorous criteria. The rate of violent crime here is consistently very low. Internal political conflict is virtually non-existent. At the same time, they maintain absolute stability in their macro-level diplomatic relations. But here's the social paradox that will astound you. Peace is protected by hundreds of thousands of guns. The Czech Republic has relatively liberal gun laws, and the right to self-defense with weapons is even protected by the Constitution. Currently, more than 300,000 Czech citizens legally own weapons. However, the rate of gun homicides here ranges from only 0.6 to 0.7 per 100,000 inhabitants per year. This figure is among the lowest in the world. This fact demonstrates that safety stems from the high level of law awareness and discipline of the people, rather than relying on prohibitions. So how does the government control such a heavily armed society without resorting to violence? The answer lies in the urban security system, which operates according to an invisible logic. You can comfortably walk alone in Prague at 2 a.m. You will rarely see heavily armed police patrols or imposing checkpoints. The Czech government controls security through a system of smart cameras integrated with AI technology. These cameras cover all public transport and key intersections. Rapid response forces monitor everything remotely to ensure a free and absolutely safe living environment. Do you feel safer living under the surveillance of an AI camera system? Or do you fear your privacy being violated? Leave your comments below. If this documentary about the Czech Republic gave you a new perspective, please leave a like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue following our stories. Thank you for watching.